Alright, now let's look closer at biological molecules. We're going to start by looking at basic biochemistry, which is the study of chemical composition and reactions of living matter. We have to define chemicals as either organic or inorganic, and both are equally essential to life. An inorganic compound does not contain carbon. I actually want to add a little bit more to that definition. It does not contain carbon in combination with hydrogen, whereas organic compounds do contain carbon in combination with hydrogen. For example, an inorganic compound includes water, salts, many acids and bases, whereas organic compounds you're actually probably more familiar with, like carbohydrates and fats and proteins, and DNA and RNA, which are nucleic acids. We find that organic compounds are generally covalently bonded. They're often large, as opposed to inorganic compounds. We're going to look at first the most important inorganic compound, H2O, or water. It's the most important compound in the human body. All chemical reactions require an aqueous or watery solution in order to occur. About 60 to 80% of the volume of living cells is water. Water also has a lot of different chemical properties, like a high heat capacity, high heat of vaporization. It's a great solvent, it's reactive, and it provides cushioning. So the different properties of water allow it to be a great and important inorganic compound. High heat capacity is talking about the fact that water absorbs and releases large amounts of heat with little temperature change. If you've ever been to the beach and it's quite hot out, but you run into the ocean and it's still freezing, that's because it takes a lot of heat in order to change the temperature of water. There's also a high heat of vaporization, which makes water a great or efficient cooling mechanism. Sweating in the human body actually takes a lot of heat with it because when that sweat goes from being a liquid to a gas, it absorbs and takes heat along with it, cooling our bodies. Water is sometimes called the universal solvent. It's not truly universal, but it can dissolve a lot, especially things that are going to be hydrophilic or charged. Again, in order for metabolism to occur, which includes all chemical reactions in a human body, you have to be able to process different chemical equations looking at the addition or removal of water to break and make bonds. So water is important in both hydrolysis and dehydration synthesis, so it is a reactive molecule that must be in solution. And water also provides some cushioning. It protects certain organs from physical trauma. So that was just a quick look at water, which is an inorganic compound. But we can also look at salts. They contain cations and anions, but they don't contain hydrogen ions or hydroxide ions. They do conduct electrical currents in solution, so when you dissolve a salt in water or another solvent, they can actually conduct electrical currents. For that reason, we call dissolved salts electrolytes. There's usually an ionic balance that's vital within human beings for homeostasis. So we want to maintain kind of dynamic ranges, but kind of set amounts of things like sodium chloride or potassium chloride or other salts in the body. Now, if you're looking at acids and bases, that's where hydrogen ions, H+, and hydroxide or hydroxyl ions, which is OH negative, that's where they come into play. When you dissolve a strong acid in water, they release hydrogen ions. These are bare protons. They have no electrons. They release those into solution, like hydrogen chloride, breaking down into hydrogen ions and chloride ions when dissolved in water. Whereas bases release hydroxide or hydroxyl ions when they are dissolved in water, usually that and a cation. For example, when a base like sodium hydroxide dissolves in solution, it releases sodium, which is a cation, and hydroxide ions, which are an anion, but specifically an anion associated with acids and bases. So what is an acid-base solution? Well, it's going to have a couple of things that we look at. It's either going to have a high amount of hydrogen ions or a high hydrogen ion concentration, therefore a low pH, and that's going to be considered generally an acidic solution compared to something else. Or it might be an alkaline solution with a low hydrogen ion concentration and therefore a high pH. pH is a way that we can figure out how many hydrogen ions are in this solution. The H in pH stands for what we measure with pH. It may let us know what's an acid, what's a base, but it's measuring the amount of hydrogen ions in solution. For an acidic solution, the pH ranges from about 0 to 6.99, with 7 being a neutral pH. And for alkaline solutions, also known as bases, The pH ranges from 7.01 to 14. So here's a quick view of that pH scale. It goes from 0 to 14. Lower pHs are more acidic than higher pHs. Some examples of acidic substances include tomato juice, lemon juice, stomach acid, coffee. Some examples of alkaline or bases include a lot of household products like ammonia and bleach and oven cleaner. So keep in mind that the pH measures the concentration of hydrogen ions, not hydroxide ions. But we do compare the abundance of both of those in order to see if something is more basic or acidic. The body also has buffers. The human body uses buffers in order to resist abrupt and large swings in pH. These can release hydrogen ions if pH rises, it can bind to hydrogen ions if the pH falls, so we can convert strong acids or bases into weak ones, essentially kind of prevent these large swings that might disrupt homeostasis, that might disrupt physiological processes. The human body actually has a buffer system in the blood. It's called the carbonic acid bicarbonate system, and it's actually able to buffer the blood and keep additions to it, like excess hydrogen ions or excess hydroxyl ions, in check. Next, we're going to be looking at organic compounds, so make sure to come back so we can talk about carbs, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids.